my opinion is, again, with the algorithms and AI, they're going to clamp down and take your money away from you. Basically, they're going to block your account if you're a rebel. But again, the future of rebels is always hard. It always has been. You either fight evil or you become evil. And that's
You're watching Silver News Daily. Subscribe for more.
Imagine waking up one day to find that your bank account is frozen, not because of a mistake, but because the government has decided to tighten its grip on your financial freedom. According to John Whitehead, this terrifying reality might be closer than we think, and the only thing standing between you and total government control could be silver. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal may be your last chance to protect your wealth before it's too late.
And worked with on and off presidents, all kinds of politicians, worked with good politicians who talked to me, and they all say the same thing. Washington, D.C. is very, very corrupt, and they want people to be under their control. And the politicians who cause the problem, I tell people, are not the people who are going to fix it. That's one thing I want to talk about before we get off the air is there are ways that we can fix it, but it's going to take we, the people, to do it. Because you're dealing with a lot of psychopathic people. As I've said before, and as my research indicated, SMU did a deep research on where psychopaths congregate in America, and they came to the conclusion it was Washington, D.C. So a number of leading figures now have come out and said, basically, we're run by maniacs, folks. Wake up. And we are. And they don't want anybody to be able to rebel anymore. They don't want rebels. They don't want, listen, the people who started this country were rebels. And today, I think they'd be lined up, taken away, put in jail probably. On a recent Rachel Maddow show, Hillary Clinton has basically said that maybe it's time to go after people who are spreading disinformation and possibly arresting them. And I'm going, wait a second, what's disinformation? Disinformation is people who disagree with the government. And, it's gotten to the point where a recent study of college students, this is amazing, 70% of college students say that words now are as bad as physical violence. Wait a second here. You mean they don't want us to have free speech? That's what they're being taught in the schools, by the way. They're coming out of a school system now that doesn't teach the Bill of Rights. They don't teach people the Declaration of Independence or any of the great values that came out of our country. And people now look down upon you if you're out there speaking truth to power. James Madison, who wrote our Bill of Rights, said we ought to mistrust all those in power to a certain degree. What he was saying is that people in power get corrupt. They always do. They have from the beginning. And that's where we're at today. In my opinion, obviously, they're not going to want people to have guns. No. They're going to, if you get, again, where is the violence coming from guns in America? Most people don't do their research, but it's from the police in this country. There are more people getting shot and killed in this country in recent years than, by police.
John Whitehead, a constitutional attorney and founder of the Rutherford Institute, has been warning about the creeping rise of government overreach for years. He argues that the freedoms we take for granted are under threat with surveillance, property rights erosion, and financial control growing stronger every day. Whitehead's latest warning is even more alarming. He believes that in the near future, dissenters could have their financial accounts frozen simply for opposing government policies. This isn't just some distant possibility. It's a reality that's already taking shape with the rise of digital currencies controlled by central banks.
And some people standing holding a cell phone are getting shot, or they're doing these knock and talk searches where they come to the door and bang on the door in the middle of the night. And so an old man comes to the door with an umbrella and he gets shot. Okay, so it isn't basically the American people are not a violent people overall, no. But how do you control the people? You don't want them to rebel, so you take away their guns. You want to shut them up. You don't want them to think, and that's the key here. They don't want you to think. And if we do not start thinking, and I'm going to say this right now, most Americans I talk to today are not thinking very much. They're too much into their cell phones and watching the news and all that, the so-called news. Which, by the way, I mean, most of your big names have come out now and said the again, back in the past, and I've documented this, that if you're watching the news media, you're getting your head full of propaganda. So you need to start, I'm telling people today, is we need to get active in our local communities. What the people don't realize this country, and Alexis de Tocqueville, the great writer who studied early America, said what shocked him in America was it was the first country that separated from the past, and local communities ran the government in each town, and they stood up to the government. That's why we have a 10th Amendment, which says that local governments can nullify acts of the federal government. So today, we're just being basically, in my opinion, indoctrinated into believing that we're people that will not be able to do anything. We should just raise our hand and salute the government and move on. And more people, like I say, are saying that you can arrest people or put them away or punish kids for free speech in school. And I'm saying, no, no, no. That's why you have a First Amendment. It's there to make people think. If you don't have a thinking people, then you have a subdued population. And that's what they want. They want our money. They want control of everything that we have. And with the surveillance that's going on, we live in an electronic concentration camp, folks. The government is watching everything we're doing through the internet. I mean, you finally had Zuckerberg come out and say, oh, I'm so sorry. The government pressured me to clamp down on COVID stuff and free speech on COVID stuff. And oh, no, no, no. Well, that's too bad, but he did. And they're still doing that. I mean, the corporate giants work with the federal government. We live in a corporate state that operates like that. And this is all documented by facts. I've written books on it, by the way. If you go to rutherford.org and see the articles that we write there, you'll see we document all this stuff that's happening. But like I say, this country's on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And the hate that's being shot back and forth among candidates and stuff like that is not helping. Let's talk about issues, folks. Not
As Whitehead points out, the signs of growing government control are everywhere. From increased surveillance on our everyday lives to the erosion of property rights, the framework for a more authoritarian government is already being built. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are just one tool that could allow the government to monitor and control financial transactions on a level we've never seen before. Imagine a world where every purchase, every financial decision you make is tracked, and the government has the power to restrict access to your own money. It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel, but Whitehead warns that it's quickly becoming a reality.
I think so, yeah. You're going to see more and more of that. Yes, you are. And again, like I say, if you look up the statistics, it's not the American people. There are some instances where like a kid goes wild in school and possibly shoots somebody. But it's not happening every day, folks. The media takes it and runs with it. The media that works with the CIA and groups like that. Again, they do not want they don't want 1776 ever again. They don't want somebody to stand up and say, we've had it, folks. We're not taking this crap anymore. And so they're going to be like that. And if you don't like I was saying, and I can talk about that in a minute, some things we can do to hopefully get this thing moving is working in your local communities. The federal government, by the way, is so corrupt. I'm sorry. There was another study that came out of Princeton University that said, where does money congregate in the United States? And again, we've written about this at our site on rutherford.org, and it's footnoted. But basically, the professors at Harvard and Princeton came to the conclusion that the United States government out of Washington, D.C. is run by 585 billionaires, which you would call the deep state. They run everything. And again, they get the money for it. And we're overtaxed, okay? We keep getting taxed and taxed and taxed. And we have a federal government now that's $35 trillion in debt. Is that a competent government that's $35 trillion in debt? And what's it spending the money on? Going to war and this and that. And we have a number of big professors now and stuff saying this is the worst case scenario they've seen since World War II. We're possibly facing a world war. And boy, if we have a world war this time, folks, you're going to see a lot of dead people. You're going to see some nuclear weapons. You've got all these drones now equipped. with all these products and bombs and stuff. And uh, listen, I feel sorry for our children. And that's another thing I say to parents: get your children educated on these issues, and at least teach them the Bill of Rights, because, like I say, they're not getting it in schools, and they don't know that they have a right to stand up and tell the government to move on, get away from it. You have a right under the First Amendment to petition the government for a redress of your grievances and fight back. That's why free speech is there, and there are answers to this, but we're going to have to tell you.
Amid these unsettling trends, one asset stands apart from the reach of digital currencies and government-controlled financial systems: silver. Unlike your money in the bank or investments in the stock market, physical silver is a tangible asset that governments find much harder to control or seize. Throughout history, silver has played a crucial role in preserving wealth, particularly in times of financial instability and government overreach. During economic downturns or when fiat currencies are devalued, silver's value tends to rise, acting as a safe haven for those seeking protection from a collapsing system. But why silver, specifically? Unlike gold, which is often hoarded by central banks, silver has a unique position. It's both a precious metal and a critical industrial resource. Its demand goes beyond just financial speculation, with industries like electronics, solar energy, and medical applications relying heavily on silver. This means that even when market conditions are volatile, the demand for silver remains strong, driving its value upward. As governments move towards more centralized control over currencies, silver provides a way for individuals to protect themselves from losing control over their own financial future. Whitehead isn't the only one sounding the alarm. Financial analysts have pointed out that, with rising inflation and geopolitical instability, silver is becoming one of the most sought-after assets for those looking to hedge against both economic collapse and political upheaval. So, while the government moves to tighten its grip through digital currencies and surveillance, owning physical silver gives you a level of freedom and security that can't be easily stripped away.
Listen, you have the FBI, by the way, which is one of the most corrupt organizations that ever existed. If you go back in time, again, I've written about this. The FBI back in the 1950s started showing up at people's homes and watching people like Ernest Hemingway, Frank Sinatra, because they wrote a letter to Congress or something. Now you have the FBI showing up at people's doors for things they're posting on the internet and basically interrogating them and not maybe in some instances not threatening them, but making them afraid that if they say another word, we're coming back. And they've been raiding people's homes and supposedly have firearms, and people are getting shot and killed. This is happening around the country. And you have the police now entering people's homes. That's another thing that we see disappearing is our right to private property. When the police can come into your home in the middle of the night with flashbang grenades, over 80,000 SWAT team raids annually in America, killing dogs, kids getting shot. I had a police chief back that called me and said, "You're right, John. I'm quitting the SWAT team raids in our small town." He said one of our agents crashed into a home with a bunch of other agents all armed, and he put an AK-47 to a 4-year-old kid's head. We're not doing this anymore. And they're all hyped up. The police today, in many instances, are being trained very militarily, and I know this too. And the Fourth Amendment, they mock, by the way. I had one guy who I knew very well. He was a good cop, and he was teaching the Fourth Amendment in the police academy. He said when he would go into the luncheons and stuff, they would all turn their back on him and not talk to him. What's the Fourth Amendment say? Your home is a sanctuary. The government's not supposed to be invading it unless they have a warrant or evidence you're doing something illegal. But it doesn't take anything for them to invade our home today, and they're getting away with it. And by the way, are you hearing MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, any of those?
As geopolitical tensions rise around the world, particularly in regions like the Middle East and Eastern Europe, the demand for safe haven assets like silver has surged. We've seen it time and again. When instability increases, people flock to assets that offer security outside the traditional financial systems. Silver, along with gold, has historically been one of those assets. But silver holds a distinct advantage due to its industrial applications. While gold is often hoarded purely as a store of wealth, silver plays a dual role. It's both a safe haven investment and a vital component in many technologies. Recent conflicts and economic sanctions have disrupted global supply chains, causing uncertainty across markets. This, combined with inflationary pressures, has led to increased demand for silver, especially as it becomes a critical resource for industries like renewable energy and electronics. In fact, the push for green technologies, particularly solar panels, heavily relies on silver, making it even more indispensable in the future. Analysts suggest that this demand could far outstrip supply in the coming decades, further driving up the value of silver. Yet the most important aspect of silver's rise is its independence from government control. As more governments explore central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, and exert tighter control over digital assets, silver remains outside of these systems, providing a level of protection that no digital currency can match. When governments are in control of digital assets, they can freeze accounts, track transactions, and limit access. But with physical silver, you hold a tangible asset in your hand, something that can't be seized or controlled at the push of a button.
People covering those issues? No, they're interviewing politicians who say it's time to arrest people for disinformation. And that's basically where we're at. We're at a point where if you've studied history, the old Soviet Union and places like that where people were arrested for saying the wrong word, for doing art projects that the government didn't like. Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote a letter criticizing Stalin. If you don't know who he is, a great patriot. He was arrested for writing a letter and put into a concentration camp. This is where where we're at today. And people forget that the Bush administration was given tons of money to build so-called FEMA camps across the country. I talked to a former NSA agent who told me they had already been built their own military bases. They're ready to round up people in times of what they call distress. But here's the other thing I'm just telling you. We all have a file now. Everything we're doing, everything we're saying basically is being categorized. And with artificial intelligence coming and taking over, and virtually, it's my opinion, it's already basically taken over. Everything you say, algorithms, they're going to be putting you into a box. This person is dangerous. This person is not dangerous. This person doesn't say anything that's threatening to the government or to the internet. So if you're out here speaking truth to power, which is our right, you're going to be in trouble. And that's where we're at today. And again, with our finances, like I've said, they're doing everything to take it, our money. Your freedoms are basically being wrapped away and thrown in the trash. We should be shocked. But here's the thing. Most people don't know we have these so-called freedoms. They don't have any idea. When I talk to people, I've talked to lawyers. I was at a lawyers conference a couple of years ago where in the middle of my speech, I said, by the way, is there any lawyers in this room who can give me the 5 freedoms of the First Amendment? Not one lawyer could. Over 100 lawyers present. And if you don't know the 5 freedoms of the First Amendment, you're an illiterate American. You should be ashamed of yourself. And then you have the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, you have the freedom of press, the right to peacefully assemble.
One of the most alarming trends John Whitehead highlights is the erosion of property rights, something that has been quietly gaining momentum in recent years. Governments, especially at the local and municipal levels, have increasingly relied on adjusting real estate taxes to meet budgetary shortfalls, often pushing homeowners to the brink of losing their properties. This overreach extends beyond taxation, with growing concerns that governments are finding new ways to encroach on private property. As laws and policies shift, it's becoming easier for governments to seize property through mechanisms like eminent domain, often for private development projects. Silver plays a vital role in this conversation about property rights because it represents something that cannot be easily taken or controlled by the government. While they can adjust tax rates, confiscate real estate, or freeze bank accounts, physical silver, held outside the financial system, remains a safeguard against these forms of government overreach. Silver, unlike property or even digital assets, can be stored privately, transferred easily, and used as a store of value without the risk of seizure. This is why owning silver becomes more than just an investment. It's a form of protection. As governments find new ways to strip citizens of their rights and assets, silver offers a level of security that few other assets can. When your home, your bank accounts, and even your digital assets are at risk of being controlled, silver stands as a safeguard that is out of the government's immediate reach. And as Whitehead emphasizes, this may be crucial as governments continue to expand their reach into citizens' financial and personal lives.
Petition the government for redress of grievances. You have all these rights, and if you don't know them, and you never read the Declaration of Independence, by the way, which is not taught in law schools, is considered a very dangerous document by many people today. In fact, it was handed out in the streets. I remember this back in the late 1970s in some streets. Some people went out and started handing it out, and people would read the first couple paragraphs and go, I'm tired of this rebellious stuff. What is this thing? These were Americans. That's an actual survey. And I detail it in my book called An American Dream, which is about our founding, where, again, the early Americans were amazing people. They took over their local governments and fought against it. Even when the power people in Washington, in America, wrote the first draft of the Constitution, they were really upset with it because it kind of moved them away from a local base. They didn't like that. When you had Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death, they were ready to fight until they got the Bill of Rights. And they got the Bill of Rights. And if you don't know the Bill of Rights, folks, again, be ashamed of yourself. You can go to our website, rutherford.org. We have a Bill of Rights pamphlet we give out, which you can actually teach your kids. And get educated, because if we don't start taking this thing back, I mean, we might as well just run to the hills and forget it, because if you don't know your rights, you don't know you have these freedoms, then you're just another puppet in the game, and they'll come get your money. And with everything that's going on in our country today, I'm really concerned, because recently it was discovered that the cost of living is rising so fast that people are having trouble buying basic items now in this country. Almost half of Americans can't afford what's in the stores, in the grocery department, and things like that. Now, wait a second. Our government's spending all this money worldwide doing all these crazy things we don't know about, setting up these expensive agencies. The president's golfing 1/3 of the year and doing all this, flying on private jets to here and there, and they're like kings. And we're out there paying for all that.
Inflation and economic uncertainty have always been triggers for silver's rise in value, and the current global financial landscape is no different. We're living in a time of unprecedented monetary expansion, with central banks printing trillions of dollars to support economies that are struggling under the weight of debt and recession. But as history has shown, this kind of aggressive monetary policy inevitably leads to inflation, eroding the purchasing power of fiat currencies. This is where silver shines, literally and figuratively, as a hedge against inflation. Unlike paper currencies, which can be printed at will, silver's supply is finite, and its value is not subject to the whims of government monetary policy. As inflation rises, the value of silver tends to increase as well, offering investors a safe place to store wealth. In fact, during periods of high inflation, silver has outperformed most other investments, including stocks and bonds. But it's not just about inflation. The ongoing economic uncertainty, driven by factors like trade wars, energy crises, and geopolitical instability, adds another layer of risk to traditional financial assets. This economic environment creates a perfect storm for silver. On the one hand, inflationary pressures drive up demand for silver as a store of value. On the other hand, silver's industrial uses, particularly in rapidly growing sectors like renewable energy and technology, ensure that there will be consistent demand for the metal even in turbulent economic times. By holding silver, you're not just protecting yourself from inflation, you're also tapping into a resource that is becoming increasingly vital to the world's future.
Well, it's definitely run away, yeah, and it's because we're not holding them accountable. How many people, again, your audience here, actually get down to the meetings of their local government and when they see this kind of stuff. Getting your neighbors together in groups, they hate this, by the way, local politicians. They will fight it. We defended a number of people who've gotten either arrested or charged with standing up at these committees. And that, again, that's us. We can do it. We can go down. We can do it. We can change things, but we've got to get together. And I've told people before this, do you have the deed of your home? I ask people. They look at me and go, I have a copy of it. I said, who has the deed? The government has the deed. Why? Because if they want to come get it, they're going to come get it. And that's another thing that we should break out. That should not be allowed. No, they should have a copy of your deed if they want it. You should have the deed. That's your home. And that's the way they're operating. They do not, you can't trust these people. A lot of the local governments, by the way, have already been bought out by corporations who come in, and they're there to make a lot of money on property, investments, building all this new stuff. Small towns now, large developments coming in and overtaxing. And again, these people get salaries. They're sitting there getting a salary, but no one's holding them accountable. And so, again, I'm telling people, get to know your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors about this. Set up committees in your neighborhoods and get down to your local governments and listen, numbers freak them out, the numbers of people. If they have 20 people in the audience standing up saying, we're not taking this anymore, we're going to challenge you on this, you need to get your act together, they're going to freak out. And you bring in numbers, you petition, you do the stuff, and I mean, they don't like people out in front of the building with protest signs. Where's all this?
Silver's industrial demand is one of the key factors that separates it from other safe haven assets. While gold primarily serves as a hedge against economic collapse, silver's use in various high-tech industries provides an additional layer of value. In fact, as we move further into an age dominated by renewable energy, electric vehicles, and advanced electronics, silver is becoming indispensable. Solar panels, for example, rely heavily on silver for their ability to conduct electricity. And with the global push towards clean energy, demand for silver in this sector is skyrocketing. The numbers are staggering. According to industry experts, the demand for silver in green technologies alone could outstrip supply in the coming decades. By 2050, it's estimated that over 330 million ounces of silver will be needed annually just to meet the demands of the solar energy industry. And it's not just about solar panels. Silver's conductivity and durability make it a crucial component in electric vehicles, smartphones, medical devices, and many other technologies that are essential to modern life. What makes this even more significant is that, while demand for silver continues to rise, supply constraints are becoming more apparent. Silver mining output is struggling to keep pace with this increasing demand, creating a potential supply crunch in the future. This imbalance between supply and demand is a key reason why many experts are predicting a substantial increase in silver prices in the years ahead. So not only is silver a hedge against government overreach and economic instability, but it's also positioned to benefit from the growing technological revolution. Holding silver isn't just about protecting wealth. It's about investing in the future of global industries.
Americans, again, they're inside watching their TV sets thinking that there's an answer they're going to get from a politician or from some so-called announcer. They're not getting anything from that, no. And the politicians are not going to answer your questions. The politicians are swooped in money, folks. They're just covered in dollar bills and stuff like that. And we're out there working our butts off so they can spend money and give money to foreign countries. We don't vote for any of that. I mean, and here's another question. When was the last time any people listening to this program actually have actually met your representative in your community that's in the Senate or Congress who comes into your community? They come in and hold forums where you can talk to them, address questions to them. Where are they at? They're sitting in Washington, D.C. The average congressman, I've been told this, spends sometimes up to 3 days a week raising money for the next campaign. I had a friend who worked for well, the big publications, I won't say which one, but when he quit that and when he went to work for a senator, he called me and says, "You won't believe it." He says, "All this is about is corporations." And he says, "It's blowing my mind. I'm quitting this job. I feel like I'm violating everything I've ever said or believed." And he quit. And he said it was so corrupt. He said it's all about money, man. And that's where it's at. When you hear the word deep state, it's basically uh, all the people running the government. And again, if SMU is right, many of them are psychopathic, which means they don't care about anybody else but themselves. That's what you're dealing with. And so, how do we change that? The only way you can change that is the way the people in early America did it. And that's it. Take over their local governments and say, we're not taking anymore. We're going to stand back against what's happening in Washington, D.C., and demand that the people that supposedly you voted for in the Senate Conference get down there in front of you so you can talk to them. It's time to be we the people. That's what the Constitution is about.
As we move toward a future where government surveillance and financial control become the norm, the value of silver as a form of protection becomes even clearer. One of the most troubling aspects of this new era is the introduction of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, which are set to revolutionize and potentially control how we use money. Unlike traditional currencies, which offer a certain degree of privacy, CBDCs are fully trackable. This means every transaction, from the cup of coffee you buy to a large financial investment, can be monitored and, in some cases, restricted by the government. John Whitehead warns that this level of financial oversight could lead to a situation where the government has unprecedented control over your money. Imagine living in a world where, if you express dissent or criticize government policies, your financial accounts could be frozen at the push of a button. This isn't far-fetched. Similar tactics have already been employed in other countries. With CBDCs, the government could go even further, limiting how much money you can spend or restricting which goods and services you're allowed to purchase. This is where silver offers a unique form of freedom. Unlike digital currencies, which are vulnerable to government intervention, silver is a physical asset that cannot be tracked or controlled by algorithms. If CBDCs become widespread, those who hold tangible assets like silver will have a distinct advantage. They will retain a level of financial privacy and autonomy that others, relying solely on digital currencies, will no longer have. While digital money can be frozen or monitored, physical silver remains out of reach of government control, giving you more security in an increasingly controlled financial landscape.
Well, I would say this. What you're seeing, you mentioned it was in other countries as well. Uh, Whoever's running the show, or it's the World Health Organization, whatever, supposedly I hear about all the time, we're moving into a global state, and that's what they're pushing. They want this to be a global state that'll be controlled by global powers. And that's exactly where it's headed, in my opinion. And that's why you're seeing a lot of this in countries. I see some other countries are fighting it. But there's no longer, in my opinion, the America that we used to have. And they don't see that anymore. I mean, you don't see the presidents and stuff don't see that anymore. And it's not a conspiracy theory, but again, I think that what we're moving toward is a global state. And things like our Constitution are going to be flushed down the toilet, in my opinion. And one reason that's going to happen is the American people are going to allow it. And we're allowing a lot of this stuff to happen. And again, the police stepping down and stuff like that in communities, they have to be careful themselves and uphold the law. And I think you're right. But the thing that I've been talking about this for a long time, this movement toward a global state, is obviously where they're headed. And so get ready for the dissolvement of America in its true sense, or France, or any of these countries. And unless there's some countries that are going to resist.
As we inch closer to a world where government control extends into every aspect of our financial lives, the urgency to invest in silver has never been more critical. Analysts are sounding alarms, warning that silver could soon face a severe supply shortage. With its essential role in both industrial applications and as a safe haven asset, the demand for silver is projected to skyrocket in the near future. Experts predict that the price of silver could see significant gains, especially as more investors seek to safeguard their wealth from inflation and government overreach. This isn't just about economic speculation, it's about protecting your financial freedom. Central banks, governments, and major corporations are positioning themselves to take full advantage of the digital currency shift, but individuals still have the chance to opt out. By holding physical silver, you maintain control over an asset that no government can devalue or seize through digital means. Silver isn't just a commodity, it's a form of financial independence. The clock is ticking. With central banks exploring tighter control over digital assets and the potential for CBDCs to be implemented sooner rather than later, the window of opportunity to protect your wealth through silver may be closing fast. Those who act now will be better positioned to weather the financial storm that could be on the horizon. If you've been considering diversifying your portfolio or seeking a safer store of value, silver might just be the lifeline you need before it's too late.
Like I said, get to know your neighbors, get together, start freedom action committees in your communities. Washington, D.C. is not going to listen to you, but they will get freaked out, by the way, if communities across America start uniting together. And by the way, and avoid violence. If they want you to be violent, they want to come in and peck you on the head. They want to send the SWAT teams in. Get together in peaceful rallies, stuff like that. And I'll say this: people in the past that have done this have gotten in a lot of trouble. They've gotten shot. I mean, people have been very effective. I can go down the line of that. It's not very good. But be very careful. Don't promote violence. You don't need to do that. Use the First Amendment, folks, and teach it. You have a right to get out in front of that building that's called the government building and protest. And again, we've defended a lot of people like that. We're a legal organization that does that. So that's how you can do it. The only hope we have, it's not in Washington, D.C., it's in your local government. But like I said, the Constitution starts with those three words: we, the people, do ordain and establish this Constitution. We are the government. The people in Washington and our local governments are our representatives. The reason we see these things happen is we've been lazy. And the average American watching 150 hours of screen time a month, whoa, that's what some of the statistics show. And kids addicted to cell phones, you're going to have to put those cell phones down, because those cell phones are basically control devices, in my opinion. And if you've seen the great films like The Matrix and others like that have prophesied this, that you're going to be taken over by an unreal reality. And whoever's controlling that, the internet, by the way, is going to be controlled by artificial intelligence that is going to be engineered by the people out of Washington, D.C.
Everything we've discussed leads to one clear conclusion. Silver might be your last true line of defense against a future where government control extends over every aspect of your financial life. John Whitehead's warnings about increasing surveillance, the rise of central bank digital currencies, and the erosion of property rights are not just distant threats. They are already unfolding, with the government gaining more power to monitor and restrict financial activity. Holding physical silver is one of the few ways to maintain personal sovereignty over your wealth. Silver's value isn't just in its price, it's in the freedom it represents. In a world where digital currencies can be frozen or restricted at will, silver remains an untouchable asset, giving you control in an era where control is rapidly being taken away. The demand for silver, driven by both its industrial applications and its role as a safe haven asset, is only going to increase as these threats intensify. By securing silver now, you're not just investing in a precious metal, you're investing in your freedom and financial independence. But remember, this is not financial or investment advice. It's crucial to do your own research and make informed decisions. However, as the government tightens its grip on digital assets, the window to act is closing. The question is, will you be prepared when the time comes, or will you wait until it's too late?
Boy, I'm telling you, you're going to be under the thumb. I mean, speaking the truth, as Orwell said, is a revolutionary act, basically. But the digital currency, which is coming, folks, in my opinion, if you say the wrong word or do the wrong thing, you're going to have somebody either canceling you or at your door. And that's where it's headed. I mean, it's going to be total control. That's the final step, in my opinion. But I do think it's coming. And I don't see much pushback against it, by the way. The average American is not going to be pushed back against it. And the only thing you can do, in my opinion, if the money that becomes more valuable, and when you have some of the big companies like Costco now selling gold, there's an idea that something's coming, and it might be good, wise to get yourself backed up in some of that material that's actual money. But my opinion is, again, with the algorithms and AI, they're going to clamp down and take your money away from you. Basically, they're going to block your account if you're a rebel. But again, the future of rebels is always hard. It always has been. You either fight evil or you become evil, and that's the conclusion.